So yes, good morning. It is that time again. It is my late shift at work tonight. And it's been a little while since I've done one of these layering videos, these weird layering videos, essentially to try and increase the longevity and the performance of my fragrance. Now what you would have just seen is I've just rubbed some butter spread on my arm. It's not actually butter, but it's like a butter. It's like a butter alternative essentially. So I'm all buttered up. That sounds wrong. But essentially it's the spread. It's like an oily spread, which is meant to be a healthier option. It's good to lower your cholesterol. It doesn't say anything about rubbing it on your skin, but we're going to do that today because I want to try and increase the longevity of this fragrance here. And this is the Essence Vault 475. I did a review on this one recently. It's a clone fragrance. It's a clone of Versace Eros. I was really disappointed with this. Now, I have smelled Versace Eros before. Never thought it was a particularly strong fragrance in the first place when I tried it. But this one's particularly tame. And to be honest, after about an hour, can't really smell it. I've just put a little bit on this arm, so I'm going to apply it properly in a minute on top of that butter layering and then without. And essentially, if you haven't seen this before, I'm going to do my morning run. So I'm going to go for a run, 3 checkpoints on my run. So at the start, middle and end, we'll see if the butter or the spread has essentially increased the performance of this fragrance compared to where I have it on my arm on the other side where it doesn't have any layering at all. So that's the test today. I'll also do a home test when I get back, just essentially to see, if it smells a bit different indoors because my nose can be a bit blocked while running. And then after a shower, can I detect anything as well after that? So what I'm going to quickly do, I'm going to apply this fragrance, and while I do that, I'll talk about what sort of Versace Eros smells like, a general vibe rather than a full note breakdown. So just initial impressions, then I'm going to smell my arm just to see what that butter spread actually smells like. It's been about 20 minutes since I applied it now, so it's all soaked in. It's a little bit oily there, though. It's not very pleasant. It feels like it's going to block my pores. That's not nice. Actually, that smells a lot worse than I thought it was going to. That's really mixed with my skin chemistry here. It's almost like this sweaty, bit vomity again. I have to say, a lot of these things I've rubbed on my arm recently, they give this like vomit smell, like this milky, vomity smell. And it has almost got, the smell of butter. It's almost got that creamy type vibe. And with my skin, that's just got that little bit of sickness, that milky sickness about it, which isn't very pleasant, I must admit. But we're going to spray 3 of this fragrance on the arm. And then we're going to spray 3 on this side as well, just in front of my watch. And Versace Eros, so if you haven't had this fragrance, you're not too sure what's in this one, essentially it's like this vanilla and mint. They're the 2 real notes in this. It's kind of been perceived as a bit of a clubbing fragrance, a night out fragrance for a younger person. Bit playful, bit juvenile essentially, nothing too high quality, but quite alluring, quite seductive. And yeah, that's why there's been many flankers and also many clones, of course, of the original. So if you like that vanilla and mint smell, definitely got that real greenness about it, but the vanilla does tend to come through later on as it develops the fragrance as it goes into its dry down. Time to smell my arm. So this is the layering side without my watch on. And this is without. Now I could just be imagining it, but to be honest, this side does smell a little bit stronger with the layering. Now in terms of the smell, there's not too much of a change between the two. Obviously some of the ones I've done recently with like room sprays and all sorts of things, they've got a perfume built into them, or they've got it in their ingredient list. Obviously butter, which is a food ingredient, doesn't add perfume to make it more different like that. It's not like a chocolate or anything like that at all. So but their buttery smell is coming through, and it's more just because it's oily than anything else. But that's really what I'm detecting. The fragrance is just sort of sitting on top of it, almost like a blanket. It's not really soaked in at the moment. They feel a little bit separate. That might change as I start to work out a bit more. And this side almost feels a bit spicier, so I'm getting a little bit of spice in this one. Again, I'm not 100% sure what's in it, Ross, but it's almost like this peppery spice to it that's very, very pleasant. But that feels more toned down on this one because of that butteriness that's coming through. It's almost sort of smoothed the edges off, taken the spice away. But it's very oily. It feels like it's getting stuck on my nose, and it does feel like it's blocking my pores. But so far, it does feel a little bit stronger, about 10-15% stronger. But of course, it's time to go for a run now. I'll obviously warm up while I'm doing my run, and maybe that will then release some of the butter from my pores. Maybe it'll make it stronger, maybe it'll make it weaker. Be interesting to find out. So what we're going to do, head out for a run. We'll do our 3 checkpoints. See you out there. We are off, and I have to say, I can really smell the Essence Vault 475, the Versace Eros clone at the minute. But I think that's probably where I pressed that sort of fragrance up to my nose, and there's been a bit of a transfer because I was really trying to see if I could detect the butter. I was like pushing it right to the nose. I think that's why. So I don't think it's really coming off my arms. I think it's just kicking off from that. But let's just smell my arm and do the first checkpoints. Okay, so what I'm picking up is a little bit like I said at the start, 45 minutes ago, and that is essentially that the fragrance or the Essence Vault 475 without the layering, just on its own, it's definitely got more of a green spiciness about it, whereas that butter has definitely toned that greenness down. It smells more like a gourmand, which it probably is again, as we know, because I've actually rubbed butter on my arm. And it feels like the vanilla from the fragrance, the vanilla from the Eros clone, is more prominent in that one, and it's mixed with the butter, which kind of gives this kind of, I almost want to say a popcorny vibe, but it's a little bit more like a perfume popcorn. It's not overly pleasant. Again, it's kind of got that, I don't know, that talcum powdery smell. That's probably the best way I can describe it. Whereas on the right side, you've got that Versace Eros DNA, a little bit like a Fougere barbershop smell, a little bit minty, with that creaminess, or I should say the sweetness coming from the vanilla, adds a bit of powder to that smell. It smells more like a fragrance, put it that way. On the right, it doesn't feel like butter needs to be added to this fragrance, but it's not really about that today. Again, I don't really want it to change the scent. Essentially, I want to make it, see if it makes the fragrance last longer, particularly when I have a shower later. That's going to be interesting, because I do find some of these clone fragrances, they do wash off a little bit easier because the oils aren't as good quality. So it'd be interesting to see if that butter, because it's quite an oily substance, if it will just make the fragrance stick a little bit longer, also with my sweat as well. But first checkpoint, I'd say the thing I noticed more than the strength probably is just a slight change of smell. Not as minty on the butter layering side, and yeah, just a little bit more, you smell a little bit more foody, and not in a good way. Anyway, do a little bit more of this run in about half an hour's time. I'll do a second checkpoint. To checkpoint 2, so it's been about an hour now. I'm trying to smell my arms. So that was the layering. Okay, so what I would say is a bit of that spicy greenness is starting to come through now with the layering. And I wonder if that's the butter just wearing off a little bit, where my arm's warming up. And it's not as unpleasant now, but I don't think it's not as unpleasant because the butter's mixing with it. I think it's more the fact that butter's disappearing. But it's still definitely not as spicy and as green as the other side, so it's still tamed it. You know, it just feels like it's not allowed the fragrance essentially to soak into my skin. It's just sitting on top of the butter, and it hasn't really mixed with my skin chemistry like the butter has, and that's just taken that spicy edge off. But the greenness is definitely starting to come through, and it smells okay. It smells smooth. What I'd say is it's almost smoothed the fragrance off, because it's a little bit harsh, a bit aggressive, this one, where I think it's a clone. It's not their best one, but it's not a horrible scent. Again, as I said, the actual original fragrance still smells pretty strong. And if you said to me right now at this current moment zone, do I think applying butter to your arm to help this fragrance is a good thing? Certainly not. I think if anything it's gone down, as I said, in my estimation rather than up. So at the moment, no. I think if, like I said, if by the end of this run, when I do my indoor test and do the shower test, if it's still pretty strong by then, and I can still smell it on my left arm and I can't smell it on my right without the layering, then maybe I'd just justify that slight change in smell that I don't like as much for that extra performance, because it's not a real significant change. As I said, when I've tried room sprays and Marmite and all those things, it's been a lot more unpleasant than this one, but yeah, it hasn't made the fragrance any better. Put it this way, I don't think Versace Eros need to add a flanker where they had like a butter, you know, butterscotch or even a butter note in general. I think it'd be counterproductive, but so far they're both still there. It's probably about 70% strong on my left arm and probably about the same on my right. Again, it's more the smell than anything else at the moment that seems to be quite different. But of course there's one more checkpoint on this run. Much lighter this morning, much lighter, it's much nicer. And yeah, then I'll do the indoor test when I'm back. It's a final checkpoint. I'm getting worn out now. I did a run last night, which I don't normally do. Because it was raining, I thought, oh, I'll go for it. Right. Okay. So that was the layering. Right, well, I have to say the butter now is definitely getting light. Let's just try that again. This is going to sound really weird. I don't know if anyone knows Play-Doh. Play-Doh's like this sort of putty stuff. You sort of make things with kids. You could make like little figures out of them. You could turn them into food. And it's like a clay sort of smell. And that's what it kind of smells like at the minute. It's changed. It's a bit like cement / Play-Doh. And I think that's really where the sweetness seems to be wearing off. And what I've noticed with Eros at the moment is the green notes in the opening are quite aggressive to start with, and then the vanilla kicks through later. And it feels like we're at that stage where it's almost... the green notes are still there, but I thought I could detect the vanilla earlier, but I think it's just that butter. And where the butter's easing off a bit with the green notes, that sweetness seems to be going a bit. And that green sort of buttery smell is almost mixing together a bit more, creating this smell like Play-Doh or cement. Very weird, not overly pleasant, I must admit, but again, better than the smell of sort of sick and vomit, which it sort of smelled a little bit like in the opening. And then the other one just smells a little bit like Eros, as you'd expect. It's still in that sort of spicy green phase. Very pleasant, very nice, easy to wear in an office situation. And to be honest, in terms of strength at the moment, the layering's not making any difference. It's about 50% for both of them. Not too bad. I think again, in general at the moment with this fragrance, Essence Vault 475, you'd probably want to reapply this one in the day. So if you had the original Eros, chuck this one in your bag, put it on mid-afternoon, I think it'll do the job. But yeah, so far not a lot different. Again, the smell seems to be the main difference, and it's changing more than I thought. I did not think this butter, this spread, would change the smell so much. I definitely thought it was going to be more of a performance thing that was going to improve than the smell, because as we were saying earlier, it's not perfume product, it's food, and it's not a strong smelling food. So yeah, very interesting. Anyway, what we'll do, we'll finish this run. Can't wait for the coffee, and then we'll do an indoor test to see what we can detect, if there's any differences. Workout done. What a lovely morning it was out there. That is honestly a nice change. The weather's been horrendous here lately, and it doesn't look much better next week, but time to smell my arms. Okay. Right. Now it seems to be changing. Obviously, during my run, now I'm inside. I've blown my nose a little bit. Still a little bit blocked, but obviously I've warmed up as I've come inside. I'm noticing a difference. It's not so much the smell now. I can't detect butter. If someone had said, what have I rubbed on my arm as a layering with this fragrance right now, I couldn't say it was butter. But I think it's slightly stronger. Now, it's not enough to go, let's get butter, and lay your body with it to apply fragrance. It's definitely not. But I'm saying that's still about 50%, and that's probably about 30%. And I think the real determining factor for this one is the shower for me, because of the type of substance, the composition of it. It's a lot more oily. This should stay on my skin better than some of the other things I've applied before, because I've applied things like yogurt that's quite dry. It's not oily in its composition. I think these oily things will last better, as we've seen with Vaseline or petroleum jelly before. So going to do my weights now, have a shower, and then I'll give my overall thoughts. But at the moment, so the smell seemed to be the thing that I noticed more on my run that changed. Now it seems to be the performance. So that's what I wanted. Performance over the smell, because the smell wasn't that pleasant. So workout done, had my shower. It is now time to smell my arms, and it's 10 o'clock. So it's essentially been about 4 hours since I applied the layering. So how does it feel? It still feels like it's a little bit there. I mean, I've washed it off with a flannel and soap and all sorts of things, but it's still there. It's still there. The question is it stronger than this side? To be honest, not really. I can smell them both, but I don't think there's a real difference. And to be honest, it smells like the fragrance again. Now, kind of what I expected in the first place. I expected I expected eventually the butter to wear off and not have that real scent about it, and the fragrance would be elevated. But the butter hasn't really The smell's completely gone. It just feels a little bit different there, a little bit oily. But other than that, the scent, the strength is about 30% on both. One positive today is I've been quite impressed with the Xeros clone. I haven't been impressed with it in the past. I did my review on it. It seems to have a little bit more life than maybe I gave it credit for originally. Maybe other people would notice it a little bit more than I expect. I mean, I've been wearing my pumpkin spice fragrance by Lush recently. Had 2 people compliment it at work now and didn't even realise it was so strong because I couldn't smell it on me at work. So do I recommend adding butter essentially to layer your fragrances? No, I don't think it makes a big enough difference. If it stayed a little bit stronger, maybe so, but I don't think even if there's a slight amount more, I don't think it's enough. And if anything, it took a bit away of what I really liked with that fragrance anyway, a bit of that spiciness, which I'm not a massive spice fan, but I think those green notes is quite pleasant. So yeah, interesting one today. Certainly not the worst one I've done. Certainly a little bit of hope when I was running, but obviously after the shower, once it warmed up, it didn't stay on in the same way. Not like a petroleum jelly anyway. So yes, it may work a little bit if you're not sort of washing or anything through the day. But I think once you do that, then it starts to, it doesn't start to add anything at all. But that's not what it's meant to do. It's meant to be there to eat it in your sandwiches and on your toast and melt it on your toast, things like that. And I think just buy it for that reason for now. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Going to try and do another one next week as well. So I've got plenty in mind. So yeah, hopefully I'll do a few more over the course of next month and you'll join me for those. Catch you later.